Sorry.
Margaret, and thank you for allowing me to speak. We all acknowledge we're in a crisis moment at the moment, and I commend the government in bringing forward this legislation, albeit on the last minute footing. I think we should have been working on this sooner. And already today we heard Minister Ross saying he's going to need a few amendments to be brought in on his omnibus legislation for the Brexit and withdrawal. When I speak here, I'm looking to the ministers and my colleagues. I would ask that we still must acknowledge the goodwill of the British people. There was a democratic decision taken by the majority across the water. Albeit we didn't want it. As a democratic country, it was not in our position to get involved in the arguments that arose, and maybe some of the people who were against the Brexit should have spoke louder before 2016 and driven home the emphasis about the crisis situation that could arise in the north if we had a no-deal Brexit and a hard border, and all that should have been highlighted with all these experts who were involved in all these negotiations down through the last number of decades, and I commend them for bringing a peace to the north. But I think when the horses bolt, a lot of these people appear, I suppose. And the other question you would ask, is if the British had no election in 2017, without them being dependent on the unionists, where would we now at the moment with the backstop? Would it be Theresa May telling us, that if she has to put in the backstop, we have a threat of the Armalite from the other side of the opposing group in the north of Ireland, the 6 counties. But we have to move on and be positive. I suppose when I speak now, I suppose we're speaking in a time of economic, when you use economic as a punch, as opposed to the sword or the gun as a weapon for making your attacks. And overall issues, I hope the legislation, if it's put in, that it's of sound nature. I listened to some of my colleagues speak today and last night, and what kind of making the comments, the notional comments, that all we're doing is just doing it for a technical nature, face-saving exercise. I just hope this legislation will end up being under scrutiny at a critical point if we have a no-deal Brexit, which no one wants, and I would say I don't want it either, but as I say, we can't be condescending on our friends across the road. On a couple of issues, Chair, mentioned about the transport, it's a crisis issue for this country, given our isolation from mainland Europe and from any other markets in the world for that matter, and one issue I would be asking, but maybe Mr. Creed is here now, agriculture, because a lot of it would be in relation to his department, is obviously we'd be hoping, that in the use of the land bridge, we can get lorries across from Dover and to mainland Europe and exports. But in regards to the issue of perishable exports, that if that land bridge becomes congested or inoperable, has the government gone out on the market and sourced potential roll-on, roll-off ferries, that instead of we depend on the land bridge, that we have our own ferries organised to get from onto mainland Europe, that is a big issue I would have concern. I suppose the bigger picture of concern is the government's launched its 2040 development plan, and that was on a case scenario that this country was working fine with our as a 32 county in cohesion with all counties, and that everything was going according to plan in regards exporting to Britain and that, but will the National Development Plan have to be reviewed because of a change in our purpose and direction of our exports and doing business with other countries? Chair, when you talk about agricultural exports, and I suppose maybe it's fault of my party in previous governments, that ever before we joined the EU, we were dependent wholeheartedly on the British for a source of exports. Cheddar cheese, the beef, be it live or in carcass form, and Minister Creed is all that. And look, I commend you, Minister, and your predecessor, Minister Coveney, going abroad and trade delegations and opening up new markets. But at the end of the day, when you sit down and analyse the markets that we've opened up, they're still only minute percentages of what we are still dependent on the British market. And You know, I remember Mr. Coveney coming home there not so many years ago saying we got the open market into America, sell a few T-bone steaks. My answer at that time was that we open the market, all right, you know, but maybe the Americans will send over the buffalo beef, cheap buffalo beef to us, like, you know, we don't seem to be making proper inroads in attaining other markets in regards to some of the dairy produce and beef produce, like, and that has to be re-examined. And one of the solutions I would ask the Minister to look at is upping the ante and the credit export insurance. The insurance made last night was Iran, Iraq, but there is other markets that we used to deal with, like, you know, the Egyptians, the Libyans, and no matter what time of the year or decade you deal with those countries, like, you know, they're always in I suppose you could say, if I want to be better, but in turmoil. But I think it would be fair, like, even without the Brexit kick at the moment, the beef export trade is, beef prices are at an all-time low, especially bull beef, but there is markets we can get into. But there's a concern from exports because they can't afford to go to the farms, give them money and end up with a boat over in some other jurisdiction and waiting for payments that could take a while. So I would ask Minister, would you review revisit the issue of the export credit market? It would be welcome, like, you know, and might help our live exports in particular. Chair, look, as I say, you know, it's fast approaching. Maybe lucky enough that it's not going to impact on Cheltenham. The Irish, in regards to sport and the equine industry, you know, has had major achievement. It gives us a good name and shows how good horse breeding country this is, like, you know, for our the equine industry, and also even in the show jumping and other related facilities to the horse nature for breeding, racing, and that. But going forward, you know, how we fix it all, like, you know, that if something does go wrong with them and no deal Brexit kicks in, like, you know, how we fix, like, you know, this major industry, like, you know, God only knows the amount of people employed directly or indirectly in the horse industry in this country, and it is maybe a small farmer that, you know, that has maybe a good mayor, like, you know, it's a major source of income for these people to stay on the land and make a living from the land, and it's an industry we have to cherish. We know we have the big operators too, like, you know, but they create jobs as well. So, Chair, I speak as a Fianna Fáil spokesperson and supporting, but I speak as a member of the Fianna Fáil party, and I fully abide by our leaders' decision to hold tough on any other contentious issues and support anything legislation be put forward here by the government today and in relation to the Brexit to ensure smoothness, unanimity and cohesion between all parties. And you know, I take offence, you know, that from other parties, you know, who spoke in the last couple of days ago, having a bite again at Fianna Fáil, like, you know, and you know, I have the green card, and obviously the Taoiseach has used the green card to his best of ability. You know, going out to Europe and getting an agreement to safeguard our economy and the peace process in the north. You know, and when I hear Sinn Féin people, like, you know, attacking us, like, you know, that where's our green card? Well, I'd be thinking, like, you know, having Sinn Féin lost their green card and they're more focused on world socialism and a neoliberal policy, like, you know, that maybe that they're trying to get in the backs and also get in the backs of another country's wars, like, you know. You know, look, I'm delighted, you know, we see the majority has changed in regards to public sway in the north of the country, but the peace process was built on the basis, you know, that unanimity consent hopefully will bring us into a 32-county republic, and I would say that that's important, you know, because you know, even the smaller party speakers that spoke here, like, you know, will be reading us, like, you know, and where we stood, like, you know, but at the end of the day, you know, I think Fianna Fáil is doing its best and hoping to stand behind the government at the moment on the issues that are of concern at the moment. And I would say, you know, that there is 1 or 2 points that I did make, and I would ask the appropriate line ministers, Transport and Agriculture, would they maybe come back and give us some bit of positive on covering it. Otherwise, thank you for allowing me to speak, and hopefully that this legislation, while it will be enacted, will not be required, but just to ensure that it is in place, that is workable. Thank you.